What's up YouTube, Defender here, and welcome to today's video. So today I want to talk to you about the upcoming event Fleeting Colors in Flight, which is the Chinese New Year event that we're getting. So it's a continuation or a repeat of last year's event, and we're going to be getting a free 4-star character of our choice from Liu. Now if you're a free-to-play player, this is very important that you choose one that's suitable for your account. Whether that's a new character or a constellation, it can make a big difference. And this video isn't specifically for free-to-play. I want to talk to you about all the 4-star characters you can choose from and why you should choose for them. Whether you have certain characters already on your account, whether you're looking to do something specific on your account, or whether you have the character and you're one short of a constellation that makes a huge difference, right? There could be a huge difference between a C5 and a C6 Shin Cho, for example. You could have a Beidou that's C1 and C2 makes a massive difference on the account, right? So it might be worth choosing a character just for the constellation. So what I want to do is get into today's video, and we're going to go through each character, and I want to talk to you about what I think their best options are. Constellations, does it suit your account, good teams for them, and where they fit in a team as well. It's important to mention, there's something like the national team, for example, which you probably already know, which is Shin Cho, Bennett, and Chongyon, and that's been a very friendly team comp to run since early Genshin days. I'm a little bit later to the scene, but I still know how useful it is. So, if you're free to play or you use that team a lot, there are very important constellations in that team to make it work. And so we'll get into that a little bit in the video. At this point, it's very important to note that there are upcoming banners with several of the characters that are available here to choose for free. And I want to just discuss, before we talk about which character to choose for free, I want to mention, are you pulling or planning on pulling for Zhongli and Ganyu in the upcoming banners? Because if you are, there are 3 characters in those banners that you need to consider. Okay, so Beidou, Faye, and Shin Cho are all going to be in the Zhongli and Ganyu banners. So if you're pulling for either of those 5 stars, you're most likely going to be getting some of these characters along the way, because they all have up rates. Okay, so what it might be worth considering is, should I pick a different character if I'm going to be pulling on that banner? On the other hand, you could say, I'm going to be pulling on this banner, I'm going to be getting some of these characters, so do I want an extra constellation to hit an important milestone on one of these characters that I'm going to be getting more of? For example, you could be pulling for Zhongli, and you might end up getting 5 Shin Chos, right? So a C5 Shin Cho, fantastic, incredible character. C6, huge, that's the biggest milestone you can get on Shin Cho for your team. And so maybe it's worth saying, okay, well, I've just pulled 5 Shin Chos. Maybe choosing the free Shin Cho from the event is worth it, because it's going to give me C6 on Shin Cho and it's going to be maxed. And his potential is going to be all the way up as high as it could possibly be. And at that point, I would even consider crowning his bursts. He's just that strong. Or you might even pull Beidou twice on the event as a new character, and so you have C1 Beidou. And I'll put some information on later, but C2 Beidou, the scaling against 2 enemies on the burst is just absolutely insane. And so that's another instance where you might want to consider which characters you're going to be pulling on, and which one should you choose as a result of that. So if you're pulling on these upcoming banners, take that into consideration, okay? You've been warned. Just a friendly piece of advice. If you're going to choose on those, just consider which characters you're going to be getting in the upcoming banners, okay? Why don't we start today by talking about Yunjin. Yunjin being the new character Mihoyo have added, the new 4-star character. Okay, so she was included in the latest story content with Shenhe, and she's had a new hangout added to, and she's a geopolar user, and she has some incredibly strong constellations that I think people aren't realizing. I think she looks niche. She looks like a geo version of Beidou, but I would say that she has more potential than what people consider. Now, constellations to consider for her as a support character are Constellations 1 and 2. So Constellation 2 is quite good for her, and it pairs very well with Constellation 1. If we just take a quick look at the two of them, so reducing the cooldown of your flourish, and then the Constellation 2 also increases the attack damage of your party members. And apart from those two, the biggest one that we need to talk about for Yunjin is her C6. Now what her C6 does is something that not many characters do in the game, and that is to increase the attack speed, okay, of people that are affected by her burst. Now if you're using characters like Yoimiya, or let's say Razor, or Eula, people that are on field and they gain more from attacking quicker. Okay, so those kind of people are incredibly benefited by the potential of C6 Yunjin. So Xingling is an incredibly versatile character that you get for free to play. So this is a very free to play strong character. Now, all of the constellations are great. Okay, as a strong DPS, you can run the national team. She's good as a burst or as a main DPS. But the biggest constellation you need for Xingling is C4, Slowbake. Okay, Slowbake is incredibly strong, and the best part about Slowbake is that as a result of having C4, there's only 6 seconds of downtime on her burst. Okay, and that is the strongest aspect of her DPS. So the fact that you can minimize it even further, fantastic. Okay, so if you've got a C3 Xingling, I think it's worth choosing Xingling for C4. Okay, and that is if you are using Xingling as a main DPS or as a burst DPS. Okay, so let's talk about Beidou. Now Beidou is an incredibly underrated support character with a lot of potential, a lot of defensive potential that is overlooked, I would say. And one character that I used a lot without any constellations, playing through the game, leveling up and going through the story. The fact that you can play defensively with this character to do more than just use iframes for burst animations, you can actually use the skill to deflect damage. But not only that, her burst has some of the best scaling in the game, and if I can find the information, I'll put it up on the screen now, just how strong the burst actually is between two enemies. So if you have a Beidou and you use her, her Constellation 2 is the strongest part of her kit. Okay, so it allows the lightning from the burst to arc between 2 additional targets. So that actually goes back and forth between just 2 targets. So if you use her in your team, or you want to use her in your team, and you have C1 Beidou, C2 is incredibly strong. Okay, so she is an A tier support in my opinion. She's got some incredible lore, she's extremely strong in the lore, and yeah, she's just a great Claymore user as well. Now Jinyoung is a decent support character, decent pyro shield support character. She doesn't shine really in any particular area. She kind of has a hybrid of stats, but you know, people have built her strong, and she's not terrible, but I just don't think that she's worth choosing. Now, the constellations I want to talk to you about are Constellation 2, which affect the shields. Okay, so there's the shielding component from Constellation 2. Constellation 4, which if you're running a physical team, she has a very niche aspect to her. So reducing physical resistance of enemies is something that not many characters in the game do. I believe it's currently just limited to a few, which are Rosaria, Jinyoung, Zhongli, and Eula. So if you were to run something like a Eula or a Razor as your main DPS, and you have a team built specifically around that person, then running Rosaria, Zhongli, Jinyoung, those kind of characters to shred physical resistance, then consider choosing Jinyoung, but she has been free before. Chongyon he's a niche support character in the fact that he overwrites with cryo buff, okay, when he's buffing. So he's a support character with a fantastic burst, but it has a downside to it as well, and we'll talk about that briefly. But the constellations that you really want for Chongyon are a C2. Okay, so C2 is incredibly strong for a team. It reduces the cooldown of anyone that stands in it by 15%. So if you're running a team with cooldowns that are extremely strong, with maybe longer times, he's worth running. And he's another one of the national team characters that, if you're running that team, if you're free to play, he's fantastic in that team, and he still is. But he's not worth grabbing extra constellations if you need one of the other characters or the constellations that we've talked about. Okay, so C2, Chongyon, reducing cooldowns. Fantastic. Other constellation worth considering is his C6, which affects his burst. Now what this does, as you can see in the description, is if your HP bar is higher than the enemy bar, you're going to be doing more damage on the end of your attack. So, okay, so C6, Chongyon. But considerations, like I mentioned, are do not run him in a team if Eula or Razor are your main two currently. Eula is a physical damage dealer, and what will happen is he will overwrite that and reduce her overall damage, and that's the same with Razor. So if you run either of those two characters as your primary damage in a team, you do not want to run Chongyon. But, as I said, otherwise he does work quite well in teams. And of special note, with Shenhe recently, Shenhe and Chongyon have incredible synergy, and as a duo in teams, as niche as it does work very well. So if you have pulled Shenhe, and you have a Chongyon that is C1 or C5, consider picking up the 2nd or the 6th constellation, respectively. Now, Yan Faye was a character that I pulled very early on in my count, and I quickly learned that she had great main DPS potential, for a 4-star, that is. Now, Yan Faye is not heavily reliant on constellations, so that's one of her best and worst traits, is that her constellations don't make a huge difference to how you build or play. Okay, now she is a on-field DPS, and her charged attack is the bread and butter of how she works. And as you can see in the video, C1 is a fantastic quality of life change for her, and so if you have a Yan Faye and she is currently C0 and you're using her as a main DPS, C1 is a fantastic upgrade for her. Similar to how Hu Tao works with her charged attacks and her Constellation 1, this is a similar adaptation where you're just helping with stamina consumption, your charged attacks. Okay, now it is again important to mention, like I said before, she is up on a banner with Zhongli and Ganyu, so if you are planning on pulling on both those banners, expect that you will probably pull a couple of Yan Fays. Okay, now all of her constellations are good, so any one you get is going to be good for just for quality of life, and, increasing your damage potential, but they're not game breaking and they're not specifically strong. So let's talk about Shin Cho. Now Shin Cho is a Hydro support character, and he is potentially the strongest 4-star character in the game in terms of his kit. Definitely an S rank character, and he has both offensive and defensive capabilities. So his defensive capability is the damage mitigation and the healing that he can apply to the team, and his offensive is his burst, which is Hydro Swords, which it can be off-field, so he can buff his teammates, and that can work for combining elements. As we can see in the constellations, the two that you really want are C2, which extends the duration of rank cutter, but it also reduces the Hydro res of the enemies, and in turn, the strongest constellation you want for him is his C6. Now what his C6 does is every third attack whilst his burst is active, does considerably more damage. So you'll do 2 attacks of sword rains, and then on the third one you'll be increasing the damage output. And along with all the other constellations in his kit, this greatly increases the output for the team. So as you can see in this little clip, when a character attacks, the sword rains also come out. If you have a C1 or a C5 Shin Cho, then it's worth pulling for the Constellations 2 and 6, as this character, I believe, is the strongest 4-star character you can choose from this event. Lastly on the list I want to talk about is Ning Wang. Now, Ning Wang is very topical, I suppose, with the event and with the current geo meta and in the story, you know, as well, with the Jade Chamber. So she's a big talking point at the moment, and she has more potential than I think people realise. I've seen, you know, some potential of her where people have showed triple crown Ning Wang, and she is just insanely strong. It takes a lot of investment, but as a main DPS or as a burst support, she is very, very strong. Now let's talk about Constellations. Okay, so Constellations with Ning Wang. The biggest ones I want to talk to you about are C2. Okay, so C2 changes her potential, especially with her burst. What that does is allows you to essentially shatter your skill with your burst and do more damage to consume your Jade screen. Okay, so that would look a rotation, something similar to skill, burst, skill. You're going to be using your skill, you're going to be bursting, and it's going to tear away that screen and do more damage, and then you're going to be able to pop a screen straight away. So yeah, C2, fantastic. Okay, so look for C2 Constellation. And then the other big one worth mentioning is the C6. Star Shatter is used. Ning Wang gains 7-star Jades. Now that's quite a big buff to her. Okay, so it increases her damage for rotation. If I'm not wrong, what you want to be doing after a burst is using a charged attack so that that's consumed. Skill, burst, charged attack, skill, or skill, burst, skill, charged attack. Okay, to consume the Star Jades as soon as you do your burst. But yeah, C2 and C6, fantastic constellations. If you're using her as a main DPS or a burst DPS support, honourable mentions C3 and C5 of course as well. We are going to be getting the free skin for her for participating in this event. So if you haven't got Ning Wang and you're in love with the free outfit that they're releasing with this event, purely for aesthetics, you could choose to take Ning Wang as your free character. Okay, so let's summarize then. So we've got a tier list here of what I consider to be how the characters rank. And what I would say is, if you don't have one of the characters that is B or higher, then you should be going for that character in descending order, right? So if you don't have a Shin Cho, I think he's S tier, so I would say pick him. And then as you work your way down the list, if you haven't got a Beidou, for example, take Beidou. And I wouldn't say to take Jinyoung unless you need the constellation badly, because she has been a free-to-play character that's been given out several times now, and it's likely that she'll return either on an annual basis or whenever the event comes back round again. Okay, and obviously to mention as well, like I said before, there are banners coming for Shin Cho, Faye, and Beidou, so if you are wishing on the next 2 banners that are coming up, you will get most of those. So either wait to choose your free character, or, you know, have that as a consideration. Okay, and then so here's just a quick cheat sheet on what I consider and what most of the community would agree are the important constellations for all of these characters. So just take a note of all these. You can either just pause the video or take a screenshot and have a look at your account and see where these constellations match up. You know, are you one short on one of these characters for one of their strong constellations? And if you are, then it's definitely worth considering grabbing that character. Okay. Alright, so there we have it, everybody. That is just a comprehensive, kind of quick run through of all the 4-star characters that we're getting with the Liu event to choose from. So, you'll be able to choose one of these, so, take into consideration everything I've mentioned and have a look at your account and see if any of this applies to you specifically. And if so, hopefully you choose one that's going to make the biggest difference on your account, right? Please let me know in the comments down below which character you're going to choose. I'm still up in arms about which ones I want to go for. Like I said previously with the banner, Zhongli is coming out and I will be wishing for Zhongli because I still don't have him. So hopefully I get a few of the characters' constellations along the way and then I'll make a decision afterwards. It might be worth me just picking up Yeonjun for having her on my account if I don't get a copy of her from the Acquaint banner once she's in there. So yeah, let me know down below in the comments which character you're going to be pulling for and what difference that makes to your account. I'm looking forward to seeing what changes that has with the constellations or with the characters. Are you free to play? Is this going to be a big difference? But yeah, I hope this video has been helpful in some form. If it has, please consider dropping me a like and leaving a comment down below. I really appreciate that. And if you're new to the channel and you enjoyed the content, please leave a subscribe as well. I put up videos 3 to 4 times a week at the moment. I'm learning along the way with editing and I'm really enjoying the content and I would love to keep putting it out. Also, please check out my socials, that'll be in the links below in the description and you can see above on the banner my Twitter _defender and catch me on Twitch most days of the week and every weekend at defendorttv, again in the description below. And thank you all for watching, I appreciate the support. I'll see you in the next video. Okay.